Don't mute it. Okay, these are both. Which we like very much, but figuring out how to do that with one screen is a challenge. Anyway, just know that we are trying to move forward and do some new things, and sometimes when you do new things, there are some new challenges that you have to surmount. Let me say Ankh Ma'at to you all. Welcome to Kemetic Ascension for June. Is today actually the 6th?
Yeah.
Wow, June 6th. It seems like we are moving very quickly. June 6th, 2021. The year is already moving. We're rapidly approaching the summer. And it is really exciting to know that as we move forward, the opportunity for us to meet in person is rapidly approaching as well. So all of that is very exciting. Let me go ahead and, as we always do, ask you to let us know where you are. So you know, if you have been part of Kemetic Ascension, there are 2 questions I'm going to ask you. First, how long have you been partaking in, been an important part of Kemetic Ascension? And the second question is, where are you? Where in the world are you? How far are we reaching today? You have probably noticed that on some days we reach other parts of the world, all over the world, on the continent, on the motherland. Also, we've reached Asia and Europe. We want to know where you are at in the world, because we know that the voices of our ancestors' traditions cannot be bound by oceans. We know that wherever you are, our ancestors are. Wherever you are, we are able to be together in a powerful, powerful way. So we're hoping that you are in places far and wide, and even places just near to us. So with that, please let us know where you are in the world. I'm hoping that we have some responses already,
Yes,
Anika.
Yes.
Let us know what it looks like.
Okay. We have our initiates, and Lee McCoy is here.
Ankh Ma'at sent Lee.
We have Virgo Venom holding down YouTube.
Wonderful, wonderful.
That's
Ankh
Tracy
Ma'at.
from Indianapolis.
Virgo Venom is Tracy from Indianapolis. Wonderful, wonderful.
The Traveling Man is here.
The Traveling Man. Is that a reference to masonry? Is that what that is? I think it might be.
Wendy Watson is here. Initiate Cleo Ford, San Cleo Ford.
Wonderful.
Initiate Tanya Smiley. We have Tia Al-Kadir.
That's not a name I'm familiar with.
Initiate Demetra.
Wonderful,
Wendy
wonderful.
Watson is from Colorado.
Wonderful. Tell us where you are, folks. Tell us where you are so we know how far we are reaching.
Initiate Sinette Tandiwe.
Oh, Anka Tandiwe. She's a full initiate, a full member. I have needed to call you for a long time. I have to restore my aunt to you with you, and give you a call and see how you're doing. So hopefully this week we'll talk. Who else?
Anna Rodriguez.
Wonderful, who has been here from day one. Ankh Ma'at, Ankh Ma'at.
We have greetings from Brazil, Janina Ferreira. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong.
Ankh Ma'at.
Janina is here with us.
Ankh Ma'at, we are so pleased that you are here.
Lady Pavo from Dutchess County.
Dutchess County.
Sarah
Wow.
Al-Qadir is new to the group from Akron, Ohio.
Wonderful.
We have Kenny Wayne Allen from New York, New Jersey. Arif Habib from Madison, Wisconsin. Tuning in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati? What does that mean? Coming from, became familiar with us through Sinetta. I understand what that means.
Yeah, we have David Cowan. We have Charles from Namibia.
Wow.
We have
Charles, are you in Namibia now, or are you originally hail from Namibia? I'd love to know.
And of course, we have our Boots and Shot holding down Connecticut.
Wonderful. I'm surprised she didn't text us and say, "Where are you? Is everything okay?" She usually does. She did. Oh, okay, she did. She did. Yes, she did. I didn't notice it. We were rushing around so much.
Sunette Olivia, one of our initiates, will actually all be graduating next Saturday.
They'll be completing their process next Saturday. Wonderful.
We have Zach Carter from Indiana, Gary, Indiana.
Welcome, welcome.
Regular Jason Holmes from Lincoln, Nebraska. Sunette Abigail.
I don't know if I remember that Jason was in Nebraska. Oh, that's interesting, because he is a regular. Welcome.
Let's see. And Sunette Demetrius out in Douglasville, GA. We have Larry Morant, and on site we have Kanelwi Kiki Mangaya from South Africa.
Wow. Wow. Joe Berg in the house. Go ahead.
Joanne from Columbus, Georgia.
Wonderful.
Herosar Ankamura from Dallas, Texas.
Wow. Texas in the house. Dallas in the house.
Tracy Ann is here. Larry Jackson from Daytona Beach, Florida. King Poppy Chulo from Detroit.
Go ahead.
Gavin Stokes is here, another initiate. Tef Newt Ra Volotus from Michigan. Damo Antoine from Chicago. Deshron from Humble, Texas. Sunette Nikki Taylor, another initiate.
Uncle Ma'at.
Michelle from Boston, Massachusetts. We have Shuet Bebop Rocksteady, which is Dwayne from Indianapolis and Chicago. Abu Zephaniah is here.
Abu Zephaniah, you and I have to connect, right? Who else?
Ruler Red from Mount Vernon and Illinois. Let's see. Zach Carter from the Lighthouse.
I think you mentioned Zach Carter before.
Yeah.
But he's part of the Lighthouse. Wonderful. Uncle Ma'at.
We have Divine Beauty out in Birmingham, Alabama. We have Kendrick Bush. We have Charles Echab. We have, I'm sorry, Charles, you said there's no sound, but I think everybody else is hearing us, so you might want to check your connection. Oh, we have Moru Sal from Burundi.
You probably have to speak a little louder, though, because remember, you're using this camera here.
Okay. Robert James from London, regular.
Wonderful. Welcome from across the pond.
Taiba. How you doing?
Who's that?
Ajamu Taiba. And Monique Colbert, regular from Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome. Good to see you.
That's not louder, by the way. That's the same voice.
That's who we have so far.
Wonderful. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. We're so pleased that you are with us. We're so honored that you've chosen to spend your day with us. We know that there's so many other things that you could be doing. I'm assuming that most of you are also enjoying incredible weather. And if you are, we know that you could be out doing something. You could be watching sports. You could be watching reality TV. But you have chosen to be with us, and we are honored. We know that that is a decision that you haven't made lightly. We know that you are here because you hear the powerful voice of the ancients, the voice of those Africans whose traditions, whose legacy has been stolen. And so it is so powerful that you are with us. We are honored that you are with us. Ankh and Ma'at, and welcome to Kemetic Ascension once more for June 6th, 2021. So, before we do anything, we usually do the ritual that marks our shrine, the ritual that was brought to us by our elder, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Pata. We truly are honored that we had an opportunity to spend time with him yesterday. Unfortunately, an elder in our tradition actually made his transition earlier this year, and there was a memorial for him over at St. Philip's Church yesterday. We were honored to be able to be with Baba Heru and to spend time with him and to assist him as he delivered a powerful eulogy for this wonderful, wonderful elder, said Clifton Plummer, who made his transition earlier this year. And you know that this ritual that we perform, which is called the opening of the way, was put into its current form by our elder. So with that, we ask you to stand. We ask you to get into the position of adoration. We ask that you are prepared to open our tradition. He just rang the bell. He didn't need to. It's okay. It's okay. Come. He just wanted to let us know a package is there. And you see, this is live in real time, right? No edits, right? USPS just arrived, and I watched him put the package into the gate, but he still rang the doorbell to let us know that he was here. So, with that, please stand with us so that we are able to do the opening together. As we stand, you are going to stand with your left foot forward, with your, almost like you're taking a step forward. And then you're going to put your hands out in front of you. Expose your palms in front of you. And then you can have the left hand a bit further forward than the right hand, mirroring how you are standing. You can even have the right hand a little bit lower than the left hand. This is known as the position of adoration. And it is a position that you will see Africans in the Hopi Nile Valley region utilizing for thousands of years. If they use the same pose for thousands of years, you should know that it was pretty darn important. So you do as your ancestors have done. Stand in the position as we do the opening of the way. Now what we'd like you to do is take a breath, a deep breath from your abdomen. Don't breathe here on your chest, breathe low. And we're going to chant the word Ankh. Now here's something I don't usually say. When you chant the word Ankh, don't go Ankh. You see how that sound is coming from here? Go Ankh, and you feel it vibrating here. That's what you want. You want it to vibrate at the top of your head through what some folks would call the crown chakra. So let us go.
Anetrak in Bedhet.
Anetrak in Bedhet.
Nuke in Bedhet.
Nuke in Bedhet. Anetrak Hapi.
Anetrak Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter.
Turn to the right.
Anetrak Serket.
Anetrak Serket.
Nuke Serket.
Nuke Serket. Anetrak Kebsenu.
Anetrak Kebsenu.
Nuke Kebsenu.
Nuke Kebsenu.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak As.
Anetrak As.
Nuke As.
Nuke As. Anetrak Amset.
Anetrak Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak Neat.
Anetrak Neat.
Nuke Neat.
Nuke Neat. Anetrak Dwamutef.
Anetrak Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak Newt.
Anetrak Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Nuke Newt. Anetrak Geb.
Anetrak Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter.
Anetrak Shu.
Anetrak Shu.
Shu. Shu. Shu. Shu. Nuke Shu.
Anetrak Tefnut.
Anetrak Tefnut. Tefnut, 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 Nuke Tefnut, Twawinter. Anetrak out in Teru, Nuke out in Teru, Anetrak and Boo in Teru, Nuke and Boo in Teru, Twawinter. Twawinter. Dwa, dwa, dwa. I hope that you were doing the opening of the way with us. It is of critical importance that we do this ritual together as we remind ourselves just how powerful we actually are, just how amazing you actually are. If you truly remind yourself what you are capable of, all of those things that are challenging you, all those things that are beguiling you, all those things that are besetting you, all those things that are confounding you, you realize that you can surmount. And if you understood that you had the fortitude, that you had the fundamental power, that you had the ability to circumvent any challenge, to hurdle any challenge, you would approach your day, you would approach the work that the ancestors in the Neteru have deemed your task. You would approach it with greater confidence. You would approach it with serenity. You would approach it in power. That is why we are asking you to do the opening of the way. It is so important for us to recognize that the traditions of our ancestors will see us through, that the traditions of our ancestors will prevent those who are seeking to turn us aside from doing so. And so I really hope that you are not just watching us do it. Now, I know that some of you who are new are saying, well, Jabari, how can I do a ceremony that I'm unfamiliar with? Well, obviously you understand that this session is being recorded on YouTube and on Facebook. And you can imagine we have been doing this publicly for literally over 10 years. So if you go to YouTube and you search Opening of the Way, you will actually see the version that Anika and I did on our television show, Kemetic Legacy Today. Go there and learn more about it. If you're on our Facebook page, search for the Opening of the Way and you'll actually see some of the words written out so you can get a better sense of what it should look like. So do your work. This is important. And we say that you should do the opening way before you do anything of importance. Truly, I think you recognize that each day that you draw breath is important. We hope that you're going to do it at least at the beginning of the day and also at the end, when you actually take a chord to record, address those things that you have done during the day as you try to balance the scales of Ma'at. We're hoping that you are doing these practices as practitioners of the ancient traditions of our ancestors. Okay, let's move. So usually at this point of Kemetic Ascension, we go into what we call Hesy. And Hesy, you should understand, is the manner in which our ancient African ancestors from the Hopi River Valley were able to galvanize divine energy in chanting, in affirmation, and in song. You might have thought that one of the most powerful things that the Christian tradition and those Africans who are in the Christian tradition have done is they've brought forward what is generally known as gospel music. Well, let me say to you that we were doing gospel before the word gospel existed. That we were absolutely singing and chanting and using these divine harmonic resonances long before anyone said the name Jesus or Yeshua. Long before the Hebrew or the Jewish traditions, we were also doing this. There are records of chants or hymns that predate the names of other nations. That is how old this is. And so today we bring you an oldie but goodie Hesy. I think that with all of the challenges we had this morning, Anika and I didn't even speak about what Hesy we were going to do. It almost feels right to perhaps do a version of the Hesy we did with our initiates last week. Anika?
Yeah.
And I believe we did Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatum. And so that was the Hesy that we did in our Sebket, in our session last week. By the way, before I even say anything else about the Hesy, you should know that next weekend is big. Next weekend is going to be wonderful. It is the Shrine of Ma'at's first Opet Festival weekend. And so you should know that when we come together for what our ancestors would have called Heb Nefer Ipet, Heb Nefer Ipet, we will now be beginning to have this annual gathering of practitioners of the Kemetic tradition. And we look to have the celebration of the new initiates becoming full members of the Shrine of Ma'at during that time as well. And so you can join us next Saturday at 2 p.m. in Central Park in front of the Dana Discovery Center. In front of the Dana Discovery Center, right by the waters, we will be gathering at 2 p.m. And that is when the ceremony for our initiates will occur. We are ecstatic that so many of them are coming from out of town, from distant locales, to be together. And I know that so many members of the already fully initiated, folks from the initiated class known as Rakasa Shen, and folks from the first initiate group known as the Hemsenu will be there as well. We're expecting that Baba Infundishi is going to be there. We are expecting that the chief priest of the Temple of Anu and the chief priestess of the Temple of Anu will be there. And most importantly, our elder, the individual who brought forth the first Kemetic shrine in the West, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Sepata will be there as well. So it is going to be an amazing gathering. We cannot wait. I'm going to say to you that we have a little bit less than a week, and Anika and I are anxious because there's a lot of work to be done. But we are expecting that it's going to be amazing. And you should know, if you want to celebrate the initiates, you can come as well. 2 p.m. in Central Park, in front of the Dana Discovery Center, which is around 110th, not far from Malcolm X Boulevard, also known as Lenox Avenue. It's kind of in between Lenox Avenue or Malcolm X Boulevard and Fifth Avenue. It's in the north section of Central Park in the village of Harlem. And so we're hoping that some of you will come and celebrate these new members. Their initiatory name for their group is Keperu Ra Ma'at, Anika? I messed up that. Did I mess up their name?
That's right.
Keperu Ra Ma'at. Okay, good. So my brain is not as addled as I thought it might have been. So good. Keperu Ra Ma'at is their name. And so we will recognize them. You'll see the flyers on our Facebook page. We have over 30 of these magnificent individuals who will be joining the shrine. The shrine is growing. By the way, I know that some of you have even asked us, how do you become a member of the shrine? Well, you should know that our next initiation will likely begin in February of next year. The application will be available in December, around December of this year. And then, you fill out an application, we interview you, and then we select those individuals that will be full members of the Shrine of Ma'at. So, back to Hesy. This is the Hesy that we were going through during our Sebket last week. It is Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatum, Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu. Okay, so I want you to recognize it's a very simple one, and it recognizes the generative, the powerful formational trinity of Ptah, Sekhmet, and Imhotep. And sometimes Ptah, Sekhmet, and Imhotep are considered the parents of Neferatum. Recognize we are talking about energy, not about literal individuals. And because we're not talking about literal individuals, sometimes those energies are described in different ways. And if you think you're talking about something literal and historical, they can sometimes seem contradictory, but you should understand that we're talking about how these energies coalesce and generate the world around us. And so that is the chant. Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu. Okay, it's a really simple one. It's one that we used to do when we were learning and becoming members of the Shrine of Ptah, so it's an oldie but goodie. So let's begin. Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu, 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 Ptah Sekhmet Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu, 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 Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu. Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet Neferatu, 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 Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep Neferatu, Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep, Ptah Sekhmet 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 Neferatu. So that's one that we would just go on with forever in the shrine of Ptah. And as we did that, recognize that because it's simple but harmonic, what you can do is you can just play with it, play with it, play with it. You can do it in a round where some people start a little bit later. You can have our wonderful Senetu, the sisters, go higher, and you can have our wonderful Senu, the brothers, go much lower. It is really, really interesting to me that you're able to do that. Because it's simple, again, it's the other tune. It's a kind of tune that allows you to go into trance. Sometimes we would see people go into trance, and we'd see people dancing, and it was really, really hot in the Shrine of Ptah when that happened. And so we look fondly upon those times, and we bring those powerful moments into the Shrine of Ma'at as we do the work that we have been asked to do. So dua, dua, dua. We hope that some of those you'll be able to move into your day, into your week with, and that you'll feel comfortable doing them as well. I really hope that that is what you will do, because I think that Hesy is one of the most important ways for you to be able to recognize and galvanize those divine elemental energies that our ancestors focused their sights on so many days and nights ago. So I truly hope that you'll use them as well. So with that, I'd like to go into what we generally call a word from the Seba'it. And if you've been part of Kemetic Ascension, you should know that the Seba'it, generally speaking, is the oldest genre of literature in the world. Your African ancestors created a genre of literature that was focused on how to live a divinely balanced life, a life according to Ma'at. And so today, what I'd like to do is I want to do a little bit of a diversion. I want to speak a bit about history today. I want to speak a bit about something that occurred this week that I think we would be truly, truly mistaken not to acknowledge in Kemetic Ascension. Some of you might have known that this week marked the 100th anniversary, the 100th commemoration of a very, very difficult period in the life of Africans here in the United States. And I'm referring to the massacre at Tulsa, which occurred in 1921. Now, some of you will easily recognize that we're talking about something that was absolutely barbaric, absolutely something that was violent, that occurred in one section of our nation. And it's not like everyone in the United States who is of African descent experienced it. But what I want us to recognize is that this horrible event actually means a lot for all people of African descent in the United States, in the West, and in fact in the world. What is the deeper meaning of the massacre of the Greenwood section of Tulsa? And what should we take away from it today? So let's begin with the Black Wall Street Massacre at 100, lessons for action today. And so as we begin to talk about this horrible moment, I'm going to say to you that we will be talking about some things that are difficult, very difficult. And you might want to choose to talk with your children, if they're with you, about this before simply allowing them to listen to this particular iteration of Kemetic Ascension today. So I want us to acknowledge how difficult this was. I want us to acknowledge what this means. You're seeing on the left an article, Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in an Elevator, that prompted white Tulsans to attack their Black neighbors. And I think that when we talk about what has happened in the United States for people of African descent, it is possible that we should begin at the present and then go backwards. Because I want us to recognize that history is of critical importance for those who are living today to study, so they understand the context of what they're living through. That is why this must be focused upon. And so I don't know if you remember this particular event. This took place in 2018, and we actually saw a woman in Brooklyn named Teresa Klein, a Tomhu woman, a white woman as some would call her, call the police on a Black child, a 10-year-old Black child, because she said that she was groped in a grocery store. This happened in Brooklyn. She was later dubbed Corner Store Karen You know that Karen is a name that we often give to these tomboy women who actually attempt to weaponize the police, weaponize the authorities on Black people. And I want to say to you that if this young child and his family, his mother and his sister, were not people of African descent, if this occurred amongst a different group of people, let's say, for example, Teresa Klein was not white, was not tomboy. Let's say, for example, that this child was not of African descent. This would have had a completely different cast to it, completely different understanding that could take place. In fact, I think that if they were of different groupings, different ethnic groups, different racial groups, the parent of the child who was accused would have laughed it off and said, you know what, you are crazy, and simply walked away. But I want us to recognize that people of African descent understand the context of this claim. That so many communities, and particularly so many men and young men of African descent, had these sorts of claims leveled against them. And then they would be met with the rope and the chain. They'd be met with violent, racist white mobs. And so I think that everyone recognized that this was the context of this event. That it was more than just a misunderstanding in a store. By the way, I'm not going to play the video now, but I want you to recognize that Teresa Klein was brought back to the corner store a day or two later by the New York Post, and she had to acknowledge that what happened is this child was walking past and his backpack brushed her. Now, I'm telling you, if you look at the video, you could see that that's the kind of thing that most people, I think, in their right mind would have assumed immediately. They would have just said, oh, someone brushed me. But because of the context of this, Teresa Klein behaves very badly. Very badly. And it's not something that we can take lightly. In fact, I'm going to say to you, this child, when the woman says that she is going to call the police on him, he immediately burst into tears. This child, no more than 10, recognizes the context of the police in the Black community. He knows that something even more dire, something even more dangerous is occurring, and he cries immediately. That's the context that we're seeing here. That's exactly what's occurring. Actually, are you able to see the video play?
You see it.
Yeah, can you see the bag just brushed on her and she responds very badly? Can you see she automatically responds very negatively? Look at what she does to this child. She starts making lewd movements to a child and his mother. And the other woman is trying to say, please ignore her, just walk away. But of course, mom is incensed by her behavior. That's what occurred. This context is one that has been seeded for literally decades. In fact, for hundreds of years in the United States. There was this concept that Black men really at their core only wanted to molest, only wanted to have intercourse with, only wanted to rape, in fact, white women. That we were beasts that were motivated only by taking sexual control over white women. And we see this image being utilized, weaponized in the media for a long time. Take a look at the cover of this book by Tony Calvano called The Sin Smugglers, where we see this Black man obviously having his way with this white woman. We see the other one on the right by Don Tracy, where it says, look at this. The man, Negro, the girl, white, the payoff, lynch. This is literally something that was produced for public consumption. And of course, in the middle, playing with the taboo of a black man with a white woman. This video, this movie called My Baby is Black, for mature adults only, conceived in love and delivered into hate. The most controversial shock story of our time finally reaches the screen. This is something that we see very often being weaponized. How many of us are also familiar with the weaponization that has become a little bit less obvious in recent years? So today, I think that what we often see, I'm not sharing anymore, am I, Anika? Good. I wanted to show something. I think very often today, what we actually see is these images being used on what we can sometimes consider a subliminal level. And if you are familiar with these issues, if this is something that you are aware of, as many in the African descended community are, then what you're able to recognize is that this is something that is still alive in our world. It is still being used. And I want us to recognize that it is dangerous, it is racist, but it is still here, that it has not disappeared. Take a look at this image. And as you look at it, recognize that this is, in fact, the imagery that is still being used. That this still is something that we should expect. Wait, let's see, how am I sharing this now? I have to share my screen. This is not working the way I expected. Wait, let's see. Give me 1 second. There we go. We are going to get the hang of StreamYard. Can't you see that we are still seeing these images being utilized in what could seem to be a subliminal manner? Take a look at this picture that was on the cover of Vogue with LeBron James and Gisele Bundchen. Clearly, you can see that they are once again utilizing the big black brute myth again, that they are still using these racist tropes. And clearly, I know LeBron did not realize that he was being used in this manner. I think LeBron James is pretty intelligent, but we cannot expect that he's familiar with the history of these images like many others were. He took a large number of pictures. When you see this one, it seems pretty clear what they're doing. In fact, there are even those that say sometimes that if you look closely, the way in which the O and the G, can you see my mouse moving, Anika? I don't know if you can. Yeah. If you look at the way the O and the G are coming off of his head, it even looks like they're giving him horns. Did you see that? These images have been weaponized against our people for hundreds of years. They are dangerous, they are racist, and they impact the way that we are seen and the way we see ourselves. And I think that it is amazing when you look at the dress that Gisele Bundchen is wearing and the dress that the woman on the right is wearing, on the left is wearing, as this mad brute, as they call him, is being used. I remember that my father, he passed away about a year ago. It's a little more than a year ago, almost to the day. I remember that he used to continually say that he didn't like King Kong. And the reason why he said he didn't like King Kong is because he said that the ape was an analogy for black men. He said that to me when I was really young. I had no clue what he was talking about. I was like, I don't know what you mean. I'm just seeing a big monkey. This to me seems interesting. But he was trying to hone my eyes so that I would be able to recognize the things that were being said about us. And I think that he said it to me as his eldest son at an early age because he wanted to prepare me for the racist imagery, the racist stereotypes, and in fact, the violently racist reality that many Black men and boys face in the United States. That is what was happening. Are you able to see the PowerPoint now? And I want you to also recognize that this is the same kind of racist imagery that we saw in the United States' first motion picture. Now listen, Jabari has been known to enjoy the movies. It is one of my favorite things to do, to just go to the movies, to sit there with a nice ice cold drink, to eat some food I probably should not be eating and enjoy the movies. It has become a major source of entertainment in the United States and in fact in the world. Well, when we think about what the first movie, the first motion picture in the United States is, we are able to understand that if movie watching is a major cultural touchstone in the United States, that it is one of the most important things that quote unquote Americans do. And then we look at the first one, we get a better sense of the very DNA, the makeup of the United States. This is the first movie. D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. And I remember that I had to watch this film.
Go back to your radio. You're on LeBron.
I'm still in LeBron? That's what I was asking you. Let me go back. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a sec. Share the screen. You should see it now. So when you look at the first movie in the United States, the first event that creates this entire pastime, you really get a sense of what the United States is made of. It gives you a sense of how we got to where we are. And this movie was a racist diatribe, a racist narrative, which sought to valorize the Ku Klux Klan. It occurs at the end of enslavement, and we actually see, I believe they're able to see the video, right? You actually see, and folks, let me know how the sound of the video is. Now remember, this is a silent film, so you're just going to hear music. But is the music a problem for you? We're trying to make sure that our tech is working properly and that we're utilizing StreamYard properly. But you're actually seeing a white actor in blackface with his eyes bugging, looking brutish and violent, running after a white woman. Why is this happening? Look carefully at the hat he's wearing. It is a Union soldier hat. So this man that is searching for this woman is supposed to be the white, the Tomhu Southern savior of this woman. He's trying to save her because he realizes something is wrong. But what you're actually seeing is this big, black, violent brute is running after a white woman, and she is fleeing. This is the imagery in the first movie in the United States. In fact, when it was played at the White House, I believe it was Woodrow Wilson that said that this movie was history writ in lightning. Can you see the white actor with blackface coming after this woman? And she says to him, "Stay away or I'll jump." That's what she tells him. And she climbs to the top of a cliff to get away from this black brute. And what does she do eventually as he continues to come after her with his mouth frothing, looking to, obviously, if you understand the story, rape her? He actually comes forward While this Southern white man is still searching for her, and she decides that rather than be taken by this big black brute, she is going to end her life. That is what you are seeing. She jumps off the cliff and is killed. That's the kind of imagery that was utilized, that was weaponized against black people in the United States. And of course, we are familiar with the story of Emmett Till, the 14-year-old boy who was accused of actually whistling at a white woman by the name of Carolyn Bryant. And Carolyn Bryant then later admitted, just recently, that she was not, that she had lied about the encounter. And in fact, this young man was taken from his home, brutally tortured, mutilated, and then murdered, lynched and murdered. And then his body was thrown in the river. When he was found, his mother was horrified, not only that her child had been killed, but she could see the agony, she could see what they did to him. It was suggested that while they have this funeral for him, that they have a closed casket funeral because the body was so badly damaged. So bad, he was so viciously tortured, and you could see his bloated and lacerated body. And she, in her pain, decided that the world should see what they did to her child, and she decided to have an open casket funeral. This was a major event in the civil rights era. And you should know that the husband and the brother-in-law of Carolyn Bryant were actually put on trial, but of course they were acquitted. Why? Because we should not expect to get justice in these sorts of situations without people of African descent continuing to utilize every mechanism available to us. And so at this day in 1955, these two men were set free. When we look at these instances, we should recognize something very similar occurred. That was the precedent to the destruction of Greenwood, the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we actually see that a young man, I believe that he was 17 years old, who was a shoe shiner in a I think it was a business place or maybe what we might consider some sort of Woolworth type establishment. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a store, a department store. I don't know why I couldn't come with the phrase department store. He actually was on an elevator as he went to break, and it has been said that the elevator lurched and he might have stumbled onto a white woman, a Tamil woman by the name of Sarah Page, and she accuses him of trying to harm her. And with that newspaper, by the way, this might be one of the few pictures of this young man named Dick Rowland. The local white newspaper literally called for the lynching of this young man. This is believed to have occurred on, I believe, May 30th of 1921. By the 31st, by the way, you should know the police already arrested Dick Rowland. Can you imagine getting arrested because you stumbled on someone in an elevator? Imagine that. So we should understand that the system that we live in was one that was already cantilevered against African people. You know this already. And so he's in prison, in a jail, and a white mob comes for him. And you should know that black men took their arms and stood at the courthouse trying to save Dick Rowland's life. And then a white mob appears. The white mob begins to shoot. The black mob begins to shoot. That white mob then gathers in a larger number, and they go into Greenwood with the aim of killing as many black people as possible, destroying their homes and destroying their businesses. Recognize that Greenwood was an extremely prosperous neighborhood, so prosperous that Booker T. Washington had called it Black Wall Street. He's the one that gave it that moniker. And so we should already understand that the white community was already enraged that these Black folks were doing quite well. This was nothing more than a pretext for them going in to pillage, to murder, and to burn. And we see a copy of the Black Dispatch, a newspaper in Oklahoma City. This is the Black newspaper in Oklahoma City describing it. Loot, arson, and murder. You should know that that 300 or more people were killed. There are mass graves that still need to be examined, and those bodies still need to be exhumed. You should know that 10,000 Greenwood residents were displaced, and there was probably upwards of $250 million worth of damage which occurred. Now, I know that we are just beginning to be familiar with what occurred 100 years ago, because for a very long period of time, this event was described as a riot. In fact, Black folks were blamed for it. And in blaming them for it, what also happened is the insurance companies of the time did not pay out to these Black businesses. There were hundreds of Black businesses in Greenwood. They did not pay out. And in not paying out, what you should understand was happening is they were preventing Black folks from absolutely rebuilding. They were taking so much from these folks. Not only have they lost their lives and the lives of their neighborhood, of their neighbors, but they also were unable to rebuild. I'm going to say to you that folks in Greenwood attempted to rebuild time and time and time again. We are now beginning to hear about the barbarity of this event. And I want to say to you, as a practitioner of ancient African spirituality, you should be up in your altars this week. You should have lit a candle for them. You should speak to those ancestors and say, you hear their names. That's how Africans do it. Give an offering to them so that they can be at peace. Do your work here, family. Speak to those ancestors who left this plane, the physical plane, in such pain and agony. Make sure they know that you hear them, that you absolutely mourn their death, but recognize the eternal nature of their soul so that you can be in communication with them once more. Now, I want to say that we should focus on the loss of life. That was obviously the most horrible thing that occurred there. But I want to pose a question to you, Kemetic. What would have happened if Greenwood was not destroyed? If we were able to see this prosperous community continue and thrive, what would it have meant for the rest of us? What sort of situation will we be in 2021 if one of our most affluent communities in 1921 was not destroyed? If those people did not have to deal with the heavy burden of murder and rape and pillage? Wouldn't we be further ahead? Well, here's another way I want to ask you this question. What would happen if Africans were not undermined? If Africans were not enslaved? If Africans were not kidnapped? If Africa was able to still be at the forefront of human civilization? I want to absolutely challenge you to go on a mental exercise. What is it that we have lost that we are trying to rebuild? In many ways, I think the people that I'm speaking to on the other side of that camera understand this. Because it is you who are attempting to resume. It is you who are attempting to rectify. It is you who are attempting to bring the traditions of our ancient African ancestors back. I think you understand Greenwood differently than the rest of our community does. Where would we be if Kemet didn't fall? Where would we be if the story of Kemet was not hidden, stolen, misrepresented? Where would we be? What would we be doing? What would the continent, our motherland, look like? What would our lives look like? I want you to engage in this mental exercise because I want to be clear. I'm not asking you to engage in this mental exercise because I want you to be completely overwhelmed with sorrow and agony based on what has been lost. What I want you to do is challenge yourself to redouble your efforts, to focus your attention, to focus your divine thoughts, your actions on reclaiming that which has been stolen from us, on rebuilding this magnificent temple that we can call Kemetic spirituality, on absolutely galvanizing the energies of our ancestors and making sure that their work is no longer being undermined. That's what we must be about. We must spend every moment of every day attempting to do that which our ancestors did so that we can once again rectify their names. That's what Rosewood, that's what Greenwood tells us. Tulsa expresses to us how important it is for us to recognize what happened so we can recognize what we have to do. That's what history does for us. What would happen if the world's most skilled doctors were still hailing from the continent of Africa? What would happen if math was considered the child of a dusky mother? What would happen if engineering and architecture were considered those things that Africans brought to the world in excellence? What would happen if the most wealthy, the most opulent, the most resourced people were people that look like you and me? Where would we be? I want you to consider those things. Because family, we have a long way to go. Now I want you to know, clearly we've done a lot in the last 100 years. And we've done that mostly without the assistance of governmental structures, of entities that have been under the control of the Tambu. But we must continue to fight. We must continue to build. We must continue to love. We must continue to remember for the sake of our ancestors. Speak to them today. Remember that which they have experienced. Perhaps you could introduce an ancestor from Greenwood to an ancestor from Kemet, as if they aren't already in communication. But recognize them both today. Tell them, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I love you. Do the work. Get up in your altars and do the work. So family, Dwa, thank you for allowing me to go on a bit of a history journey, historical journey with you today. I hope that you recognize that when we study the history of African people, we will be better equipped, better prepared to do the things we need to do in our modern era. The divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Dwa, thank you for being part of Kemetic Ascension. Anika, can I ask you to come forward with our final affirmation?
Sure. So first, I wanted to acknowledge all of those who gave donations today. We have Anjay Bryant, we have Dion Lives, we have Demetra Bryant, and we have Tracy Walker. Thank you so much for those of you who gave us our donations on Cash App. I know Justin Jackson has been donating as well on PayPal. We appreciate all the donations. It's helping us upgrade and do better things for the community. So if you can continue to do so, please do so. You can do it via Cash App at $ Shrine of Ma'at, or via PayPal to ma'at@shrineofma'at.org. Feel free to donate whatever you can. You can also put some stars on Facebook, and that'll also help us raise money for the shrine. So all of what you do is extremely helpful, and we appreciate everything that we receive from all of you. We do look forward to seeing you next weekend at our Hebkep Ruwer and part of the OPEP Festival. So our flyers have been posted on both Facebook and the Kemetic Legacy Today Facebook page, as well as our Shrine of Ma'at page. So please look for more information there, and we hope to see you there. We are still social distancing, we are still masking, so please be mindful of the community and keep everyone safe, and we look forward to seeing you. So at this time, I'd like to do our closing affirmation, which is one of the oldest Kemetic prayers that you will find in the Reu and Pert and Ger, known as the Amasu. So if you could stand in the pose of adoration, same as when we did the opening of the way, left foot forward, left hand forward, right foot back, right hand back. And we will start in the language of our ancestors and then repeat it in English. So please repeat after me. Amasu and Pater.
Amasu and Pater.
Sauksu.
Sauksu.
Emetra.
Ementra.
And Pater.
And Pater.
Autu.
Autu.
Aura.
Aura.
Maketipa.
Maketipa.
Herura.
Herura.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
And do it tomorrow.
And do it tomorrow.
Just as you did it
just
today.
As you did it today.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Thank you to the divine, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you so much. We're so honored once again that you have been part of Kemetic Ascension. We look forward to seeing so many of you next week. And you should also know that we're going to be streaming it on our Shrine of Ma'at Facebook page. So some of you will still be able to partake in it as much as we can. We're going to be streaming the ceremony for our completed initiates on the public page. And for those of you who are initiates that are not able to travel, we'll be streaming so much of the other events of the weekend on our private page. So please go forth in peace. Have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week. We look forward to seeing you too soon. Shema Metet, Ankin Mahat.